You're mine now, woman. The stranger's hand closed around Eleanor's throat, shoving her against the cabin wall. His eyes burned like coals in the firelight. My land, my rules. You don't leave until I say so. Eleanor's 7-year-old son screamed behind her. Her wounded arm throbbed, and somewhere outside, the men who'd tried to kill them were still hunting. She had no choice. Before I continue, drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. Subscribe and stay until the end. This story will break your heart and put it back together. Now let me tell you how Eleanor Morgan ended up in the hands of a man called Beast. The bullet punched through the wagon canvas 6 inches from Eleanor's head. "Get down!" She grabbed Ben and threw them both to the floor. Glass shattered. Wood splintered. Horses screamed. "Mama! Quiet!" She clamped her hand over his mouth. Blood ran down her forearm where something had sliced her, but she couldn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything except her son's heartbeat hammering against her chest. Gunfire crackled. 1 shot, 2, then a wet thud and silence. Footsteps circled the wagon, slow, deliberate. "Check inside," a voice ordered. Eleanor reached for the pistol hidden in her skirts. 2 bullets, 2 chances. The canvas ripped open. A face appeared, scarred, grinning, tobacco-stained teeth. "Well, well," he reached for her. "What do we got?" She shot him between the eyes. The man dropped. Shouts erupted outside. Eleanor didn't wait. She kicked out the back panel, grabbed Ben, and ran. "There! The woman!" Bullets whined past her ears. Ben sobbed against her shoulder. Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed. A ravine opened ahead. She didn't think, just jumped. They tumbled down the slope, rocks tearing at clothes and skin. Eleanor wrapped herself around Ben, taking every hit on her back, her shoulders, her already wounded arm. They landed hard at the bottom. She bit through her lip to keep from crying out. Above them, voices argued. "She's got the kid. Wade wants them alive." "Then you go down there. I ain't breaking my neck for some runaway wife." "Jacob won't like this." "Jacob can go to hell. She killed Murphy. Storm's coming anyway. Let the land finish her." Hoofbeats retreated. Silence fell. Eleanor lay in the dirt, her son clutched to her chest, and let herself breathe. "Mama?" Ben's voice shook. "Mama, are you dead?" She almost laughed. Almost. "Not yet, baby. Not yet." She forced herself up. Every muscle protested. Blood soaked her sleeve now, dripping from her fingertips. The sky had turned the color of bruises, and the wind carried the smell of rain. "We need to move." "Where?" Eleanor looked around. Nothing but scrubland and limestone ridges stretching to the horizon. No road, no town, no help. "Forward," she said. "We move forward." They walked. The storm hit an hour later. Rain came down like punishment from God, cold and relentless. Within minutes, Eleanor couldn't see 10 feet ahead. Ben stumbled beside her, too exhausted to cry anymore. "Mama, I can't." "You can." She pulled him closer. "One more step. That's all. Just one more." "I can't." "Benjamin Morgan." She stopped, knelt in the mud, and grabbed his shoulders. "Look at me." He looked. His eyes were hollow. 7 years old and already learning what it meant to suffer. "Your daddy left us," Eleanor said. The words tore out of her like broken glass. "He took our money and ran off with another woman, and left us with nothing. Nothing but each other." Ben's face crumpled. "You said he was dead." "I lied. I lied because I was ashamed. But I'm done being ashamed." She gripped him tighter. You and me, Ben. That's all we got. That's all we need. So you're going to take one more step, and then another, and we're going to survive this. You hear me?" Tears mixed with rain on his cheeks, but he nodded. "One more step," he whispered. "One more step." They kept walking. The cabin appeared like a ghost through the rain. Dark, silent, built into a limestone ridge like it was hiding from the world. Eleanor's heart lurched. "There, you see it?" Ben squinted through the downpour. "Is anyone there?" "I don't know." She reached for her pistol. One bullet left. "Stay behind me." They approached slowly. No smoke from the chimney, no horse in the lean-to, no light in the windows. Eleanor tried the door, barred from inside. She circled to the side, found a window with broken shutters. One hard push and they swung inward. "I'll go first." She boosted Ben up. "If anyone's inside, you run. You don't look back. Understand?" "I won't leave you." "Ben, I won't." Something fierce burned in his eyes. Something she recognized. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Together then." She climbed through after him, biting back a scream as her wounded arm scraped the frame. Inside, darkness. The smell of wood smoke and animal hide. Eleanor fumbled along the wall until her fingers found a lamp. Matches beside it. Light flared. She wished it hadn't. Pelts covered the walls. Wolf, deer, bear. Something with claws longer than her fingers. Traps hung from hooks. Wicked steel jaws waiting to bite. A rifle stood in the corner, longer than Ben was tall. And on the far wall, tacked up like decorations, half a dozen wanted posters. Wanted, dead or alive. Different faces, different names, all with prices on their heads. "Mama," Ben tugged her sleeve. "Mama, who lives here?" Before she could answer, she heard it. Footsteps. Outside. Coming closer. Eleanor grabbed the rifle. Her hand shook so bad she nearly dropped it. She positioned herself between Ben and the door, one bullet in her pistol, an unfamiliar rifle in her hands, and no idea how to use it. The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched. 1 second. 2. 3. Then the door exploded inward. He filled the doorway like a thundercloud, bigger than any man she'd ever seen, shoulders wide enough to block the storm still raging behind him. A coat of animal hide that made him look half beast. A beard covering most of his face, dark and tangled and streaked with rain. And his eyes. God help her, his eyes. They caught the lamplight and threw it back like a predator's. No warmth, no mercy. Just cold calculation, measuring her and finding her wanting. "You got exactly one chance," he said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Tell me why I shouldn't kill you where you stand." Eleanor raised the rifle. It weighed 100 pounds in her trembling arms. "Stay back. I'm armed." He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he moved. 1 second he was in the doorway. The next he was in front of her, the rifle wrenched from her grip and tossed aside like kindling. His hand closed around her throat, not squeezing, but holding, pinning her against the wall like a bug on display. "That rifle ain't loaded." His breath was hot on her face. "I keep the ammunition separate. Stops fools from doing exactly what you just tried." Eleanor clawed at his wrist. Useless, like scratching stone. "Please." "Mama!" Ben launched himself at the giant, fists swinging. "Let her go! Let her go!" The man caught Ben with his free hand, lifting the boy clear off the ground. For one horrible moment, Eleanor thought he would dash her son against the wall. Instead, he set Ben down gently. "Brave," he said, studying the boy. "Stupid, but brave." He released Eleanor's throat. She sagged against the wall, gasping. "Who are you?" the man demanded. "Eleanor," she coughed, rubbed her bruised neck. "Eleanor Morgan. We were attacked on the road. They killed our escorts, took everything." "Who attacked you?" "I don't know. They mentioned a name. Wade. Jacob Wade." Something flickered in those predator eyes. Recognition. And something else. Something colder. "What's your husband's name?" Eleanor's heart stopped. "He's dead." "I didn't ask if he was dead. I asked his name." The silence stretched. Rain hammered the roof. Ben pressed against Eleanor's leg, shaking. "Robert," she whispered. "Robert Morgan." The man stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "You're lying." "I'm not." "Woman." He leaned closer. "I've spent 15 years tracking men through these hills, reading signs, finding what's hidden. I know a liar when I see one." Eleanor's mouth went dry. "Now." He straightened, crossing his arms over his massive chest. "Tell me your husband's real name, or you and the boy can take your chances with Wade's men." Ben looked up at her. His eyes asked a question she couldn't avoid anymore. "William," she said. The name tasted like poison. "His name was William. William Garrett. He left us 2 years ago, stole everything we had and vanished. I changed our name, told everyone he died." "Because a widow gets sympathy," her voice cracked. "An abandoned wife gets blame." The man studied her. The rain slowed outside. The silence stretched until Eleanor thought she might scream just to break it. Finally, he spoke. "William Garrett owes Jacob Wade $12,000. Stole it from a bank job 3 years back and disappeared. Wade's been looking for him ever since." He paused. "Now, he's looking for you." Eleanor's knees buckled. She caught herself against the wall. "I don't have any money. I don't know where William is. I haven't seen him in 2 years." "Doesn't matter." The man moved to the fireplace, crouching to stoke the dying embers. "Wade doesn't want money from you. He wants leverage. Bait. A way to draw William out of whatever hole he's hiding in." "Then he's wasting his time. William doesn't care about us. He never did." "Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, you're a dead woman walking out there." He stood, and the fire cast half his face in shadow. "You stay out in those hills, Wade finds you inside a week. And what he does to women who can't pay their debts..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. "What's the alternative?" Eleanor asked. He turned to face her fully. Those predator eyes pinned her in place. "You stay here. You work for your keep. Cooking, cleaning, mending. You don't ask questions about my business. You don't try to run." He paused. "And you don't leave until I say you can." "That sounds like prison." "It sounds like survival. Take it or leave it." Eleanor looked at Ben, at his pale face and trembling chin, at the hope still flickering in his eyes despite everything. She thought about the men chasing them, about William and his betrayal, about the endless miles of hostile country between here and anywhere safe. Then she looked at the man in front of her, this beast, this stranger, this outlaw. "What's your name?" she asked. "Silas. Silas Cole." "Why are you helping us, Silas Cole?" Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the stone. "I had a wife once, a daughter, 3 years old. Men came while I was away, Union soldiers looking for Confederate deserters." His voice went flat. "Dead." They didn't find any deserters, but they found my family. Eleanor's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. He grabbed a bundle of cloth from a shelf and tossed it to her. Bandages, for your arm. There's food in the larder. Feed the boy and get some sleep. He headed for the door. Where are you going? To make sure nobody followed you. He paused at the threshold, looking back. And Mrs. Morgan, don't mistake this for kindness. I need someone to keep this place while I work. You need shelter. It's a transaction, nothing more. I understand. Do you? He held her gaze. Because the last person who tried to run from me is buried behind the woodshed. He disappeared into the night. Eleanor stood frozen, her heart pounding against her ribs. She'd traded one danger for another, one captor for another, one form of captivity for another. But her son was alive. They had shelter. They had food. For now, that had to be enough. Mama! Ben tugged at her skirt. Is that man going to hurt us? Eleanor knelt down, cupping his face in her hands. I don't know, baby. But I know this. He's the only thing standing between us and the men who want to kill us. So we're going to do what he says. We're going to be smart. And we're going to survive. Ben nodded slowly. I didn't like when he grabbed you. Neither did I. But, he bit his lip, he was gentle when he put me down. Did you see? Eleanor had seen, had filed it away in the back of her mind, alongside every other confusing detail about Silas Cole. A man with wanted posters on his wall. A man who threatened to kill her one moment and offered shelter the next. A man whose eyes went dead when he spoke of his murdered family. Let's get you cleaned up, she said, and then we'll eat something. She bandaged her own wound first, gritting her teeth against the sting. Then she tended to Ben's scrapes and found food in the larder. Dried meat, hardtack, a jar of preserved fruit. Not much, but more than they'd had in days. Ben fell asleep with his head in her lap, exhaustion finally winning out over fear. Eleanor sat in the dim cabin, listening to the fire crackle and the storm fade to drizzle outside. Her eyes drifted to the wanted posters on the wall. Different faces, different crimes, different prices. Then she noticed something she'd missed before. One poster was different from the others, newer, less faded. She carefully eased Ben off her lap and crossed to the wall, holding the lamp high. The face staring back at her made her blood freeze. Wanted, William Garrett, for robbery, fraud, and murder. $5,000 reward. Dead or alive. Murder. Her husband, the man she'd shared a bed with for 5 years, the father of her child, was wanted for murder. Eleanor's hand trembled. The lamp swayed, shadows dancing across William's printed face. All this time, she'd told herself he was just a coward, a thief, a man too weak to face his responsibilities. But a murderer? The cabin door creaked. Eleanor spun, nearly dropping the lamp. Silas stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes fixed on the poster in her hand. Now you know, he said quietly, what your husband really is. I didn't, her voice broke. I didn't know. I figured. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Most wives don't, until it's too late. Is that why Wade wants me? Because William killed someone? William killed Wade's brother, shot him in the back over a card game, and stole $12,000 from the gang's take. Silas shrugged off his coat. Wade's been hunting him for 3 years. Now he'll use you to finish the job. Eleanor sank onto the bench, the poster crumpling in her fist. Everything she thought she knew. Everything she'd told herself about her marriage, her husband, her life. All of it lies built on lies. "What do I do?" she whispered. Silas crouched in front of her. This close, she could see the scars beneath his beard, the lines carved by years of hard living, the exhaustion behind those predator eyes. "You survive," he said. "That's all any of us can do." "How? Wade's men are out there. William's God knows where. I have nothing. No money, no family, nothing but a 7-year-old boy and a gunshot wound." "You have shelter." Silas's voice was rough, but not unkind. "You have food. You have time to heal. And you have me." "A stranger who threatened to kill me an hour ago." "A stranger who didn't." He stood. "Get some sleep, Mrs. Morgan. Tomorrow, we start making you useful." He moved to a chair by the fire, settling into it with his rifle across his knees. "You're not going to bed?" Eleanor asked. "I don't sleep much." His eyes reflected the flames. "Old habit." She wanted to ask more, about his wife, his daughter, about the Union soldiers and the grave behind the woodshed, about why a man who seemed capable of terrible violence had shown mercy to a stranger and her child. But exhaustion pulled at her like chains. She gathered Ben in her arms and carried him to the bed in the corner, curling around him beneath the rough blankets. The last thing she saw before sleep took her was Silas Cole, sitting motionless by the fire, watching over them like a guard dog. Or a wolf deciding whether to protect the lamb or eat it. Somewhere outside, a real wolf howled. Lonely, hungry, closer than it should have been. And in the darkness of the cabin, Silas Cole's hand tightened on his rifle. Eleanor woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of wood being split. Gray light filtered through the cabin's single window. Ben still slept beside her, his small body curled tight against the cold. She lay still for a moment, listening to the rhythmic crack of the axe outside, trying to remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The attack, the running, the stranger with predator eyes who'd wrapped his hand around her throat and told her she couldn't leave. She sat up slowly, her wounded arms screaming in protest. The bandage had soaked through during the night, red blooming against the white cloth like a terrible flower. The cabin door opened. Silas ducked inside, his arms full of split logs. He glanced at her once, then at the bloody bandage. "That needs changing." "I know." "So change it." He dropped the wood by the fireplace and moved to the stove, where a pot of coffee sat steaming. He poured 2 cups without asking if she wanted one. Eleanor eased out of bed, careful not to wake Ben. Every muscle in her body ached. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Silas held out a cup. She took it, their fingers brushing briefly. His hands were rough as tree bark, scarred across the knuckles. "Thank you," she said. He grunted. Not a yes, not a no, just acknowledgement that she'd spoken. Eleanor sipped the coffee, strong enough to strip paint. She forced herself to swallow. "What happens now?" she asked. Silas settled into the chair by the fire, the same chair he'd occupied all night. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his gaze was sharp as ever. "Now you earn your keep." "You mentioned that. Cooking, cleaning." "Among other things." He nodded toward the pile of pelts in the corner. "Those need scraping and stretching. You know how?" "No." "You'll learn." He drained his coffee in one long swallow. "I'll be gone most days checking trap lines. You'll keep the cabin, keep the boy quiet, keep that fire burning. And if Wade's men come?" Silas's jaw tightened. "They won't find this place. Trail's hidden. I made sure of that years ago. But if they do, he met her eyes. Then you take the boy and run, north, toward the ridge. There's a cave about half a mile up. I'll find you. And if you don't, then you keep running until you hit Cedar Creek. Find a man named Thomas Blackwood, Reverend. Tell him Silas sent you. He paused. He'll know what to do. Eleanor filed the name away. Thomas Blackwood, Cedar Creek. Why would a reverend help an outlaw's whatever I am to you? Something flickered across Silas's face, almost a smile. Blackwood don't judge a man by his past. He judges him by his present. He stood, reaching for his rifle. I'll be back before dark. There's food in the larder. Don't let the fire die. He was halfway to the door when Ben's voice stopped him. Mr. Silas? The boy had woken silently, watching them from the bed with wide eyes. Silas turned. Yeah? Are you going to hurt my mama? The question hung in the air. Eleanor's heart clenched. Silas walked back to the bed and crouched down, putting himself at eye level with Ben. This close, the difference between them was almost comical. The massive scarred man and the small, frightened boy. I ain't gonna hurt your mama, Silas said quietly. I ain't gonna hurt you. But this land will if you don't respect it. The cold will. The animals will. The men hunting you will. He paused. My job is to teach you how to survive all that. Your job is to learn. We got a deal? Ben studied him for a long moment. Then he stuck out his hand. Deal. Silas shook it, his huge palm swallowing the boy's fingers completely. Good man. He stood and headed for the door. Mind your mama. Stay inside. And don't touch my rifle. Then he was gone, disappearing into the gray morning like smoke. Ben looked at Eleanor. He's scary. Yes. But he's not mean scary. He's... Ben searched for the word. Sad scary. Eleanor pulled her son close, pressing a kiss to his forehead. I think you might be right, baby. The day passed slowly. Eleanor changed her bandage with supplies she found in the trunk, gritting her teeth against the pain. The wound was clean, at least. No sign of infection. Small mercies. She explored the cabin while Ben played with carved wooden figures he'd found on a shelf. 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a small child. Made with obvious care, worn smooth from handling. Silas's family. The wife and daughter he'd mentioned. Eleanor put them back exactly where she'd found them. The larder held more than she'd expected. Dried meat, beans, flour, salt, preserved vegetables in clay jars. Enough to last weeks, maybe months. Whatever else Silas was, he wasn't careless about survival. She made a simple stew for lunch, the first hot meal she and Ben had eaten in days. He devoured it so fast, she worried he'd make himself sick. Slow down, baby. It's good, Mama. He scraped the bowl with his fingers. Can I have more? One more bowl, then we save the rest for supper. As the afternoon wore on, Eleanor tackled the pelts as Silas had instructed. The work was disgusting, bloody and smelly, and hard on her wounded arm. But it gave her something to focus on besides the fear gnawing at her gut. Ben watched her work for a while, then started asking questions. Mama, why did Papa leave us? The question came out of nowhere. Eleanor's hands stilled on the scraping tool. I don't know, baby. Was it because of me? Her heart cracked. No, God, no. She set down the tool and pulled him into her lap, heedless of the blood on her hands. Your papa left because he was a coward, because he cared more about money and his own pleasure than he did about us. It had nothing to do with you. But he was supposed to protect us. That's what papas do. Yes, it is. Mr. Silas protects us now. Eleanor didn't know what to say to that. Mr. Silas is... She searched for the right words. He's letting us stay here because we're useful to him. That's different. How is it different? Because he doesn't love us. He doesn't even know us. Ben considered this with the gravity only children possess. Maybe he will, he said finally. Know us, I mean. And then maybe he'll love us too. Eleanor held her son tighter, blinking back tears she couldn't afford to shed. The sun was setting when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A high-pitched whine somewhere outside. She grabbed the pistol from her skirts, still one bullet left, and moved to the window. Nothing. Just shadows lengthening across the clearing. The whine came again, closer now, pained. Stay here, she told Ben. Don't move. She cracked open the door, pistol raised. In the dim light, she saw it. A shape huddled near the woodpile. Gray fur matted with blood, yellow eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. A wolf, or something close to it. Bigger than a coyote, smaller than the wolves she'd seen in picture books. A hybrid, maybe. Half wild, half something else. It had a trap clamped on its front leg, steel jaws biting deep into flesh. Eleanor's stomach turned. She'd seen what those traps could do. Silas had shown her that morning, explaining how they worked. The animal watched her approach, lips peeling back from its teeth. But it didn't growl, didn't snap. Just watched her with those yellow eyes full of pain and something that might have been resignation. Easy, Eleanor murmured. Easy now. She crouched a few feet away, studying the trap. The release mechanism was on the side. Simple enough if you knew what you were doing. The animal whined again. I know it hurts. I'm going to help you, okay? But you can't bite me. We got a deal? Those yellow eyes held hers. Understanding or instinct, she couldn't tell. Eleanor reached for the trap. The cabin door banged open behind her. Mama, no! The wolf snarled. Eleanor jerked back. But instead of lunging at her, the animal cowered, pressing itself against the woodpile. Ben stood in the doorway, his face white. Mr. Silas said don't touch his traps. This isn't about the trap, baby. This animal is hurt. I need to help it. But what if it bites you? Then I'll have 2 wounds instead of 1. She turned back to the wolf. But I don't think it will. Look at its eyes. It knows I'm trying to help. She reached for the trap again. Slowly, carefully. Her fingers found the release mechanism. The jaws sprang open. The wolf yelped and scrambled backward, favoring its mangled leg. For a moment, it just stared at her, chest heaving. Then it did something strange. It limped forward and pressed its head against her knee. Just once, just briefly. Then it disappeared into the darkness. Eleanor sat in the dirt, her heart pounding. Mama! Ben crept closer. Did you just make friends with a wolf? Before she could answer, another voice cut through the twilight. What the hell did you do? Silas emerged from the tree line, a string of rabbits over his shoulder and fury in his eyes. That wolf was caught in a trap. I released it. You released my catch. Your catch was an animal in agony. I helped it. Silas's jaw worked. That animal was worth $20 in Cedar Creek, more if the pelt was clean. Then I owe you $20. You don't have 20 cents. Then I'll work it off. Eleanor stood, meeting his glare with her own. I won't apologize for showing mercy to a suffering creature. If that's a problem, you can throw us out right now. The silence stretched between them. Ben pressed against Eleanor's side, trembling. Finally, Silas exhaled. That animal's half dog, half wolf. Been living on the edges of my territory for 2 years now. Smart enough to avoid my traps until today. He shook his head. You just earned yourself an enemy, or a friend. Won't know which until it comes back. It won't come back. It will. He brushed past her toward the cabin. Wild things remember who hurts them. They also remember who helps. That night, after Ben fell asleep, Eleanor sat by the fire, working on another pelt. Silas occupied his usual chair, cleaning his rifle with methodical precision. Tell me about your wife. The words came out before she could stop them. Silas's hands stilled on the rifle. Why? Because I'm living in her home, sleeping in her bed, using her things. Eleanor kept her eyes on the pelt. I want to know who she was. The silence stretched so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Clara, he said finally. Her name was Clara. She grew up in Virginia, daughter of a preacher, could quote scripture better than any man I ever met. A pause. She could also shoot a rabbit at 50 yards and skin it faster than I could. How did you meet? War. I was wounded at Chancellorsville. She was helping at a field hospital. Something softened in his voice. She told me later she knew I was trouble the moment she saw me, but she patched me up anyway. And your daughter? Lily. The name came out rough. 3 years old when... He stopped, swallowed. She had her mother's eyes, blue as summer sky. Used to follow me around the farm like a little shadow, asking questions about everything. Eleanor finally looked up. Silas's face was turned toward the fire, but she could see the reflection of flames in his eyes, or maybe tears. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have asked. No, he cleared his throat. It's been a long time since anyone asked, since anyone wanted to know. He resumed cleaning the rifle. They died 8 years ago. I've been out here ever since. Alone? Alone. That's a long time to be lonely. Silas's hand stilled again. I ain't lonely. I'm alone. There's a difference. Is there? He met her eyes. Something passed between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. Get some sleep, Mrs. Morgan. Tomorrow, I'm teaching you how to shoot. Eleanor blinked. I know how to shoot. I killed a man yesterday. You got lucky yesterday. Lucky don't keep you alive out here. Skill does. He set aside the rifle and rose. Dawn, don't be late. He moved toward the door. Where are you going? To check the perimeter, and to see if your new friend is still lurking around. The wolf? Half-wolf. He paused at the threshold. You gave it mercy. Now we'll see what it does with it. He disappeared into the night. Eleanor sat alone by the fire, Silas's words echoing in her mind. Wild things remember who hurts them. They also remember who helps. She thought about William, about the wanted poster with his face, about the man she'd married and the monster he'd become. She thought about Silas, about the grief he carried like a second skin, about the wife and daughter buried somewhere in Virginia. She thought about herself, about the woman she'd been before William's betrayal and the woman she was becoming in the aftermath. A widow who wasn't a widow. A prisoner who wasn't quite a prisoner. A mother fighting to keep her son alive in a world that wanted them both dead. Tomorrow, she would learn to shoot properly. Tomorrow, she would scrape more pelts and cook more meals and prove her usefulness to a man who didn't want to need anyone. But tonight, she allowed herself one small moment of hope. They were alive. They had shelter. They had food. and somewhere out in the darkness, a half-wild creature remembered her kindness. Maybe that was enough to build on. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the cabin's single window. Eleanor pulled her shawl tighter and reached for another pelt. In his bed of furs, Ben murmured in his sleep. "Papa?" Eleanor's hands stilled. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "Mr. Silas." She closed her eyes against the tears that threatened. Her son was already learning to replace what he'd lost, already reaching for a new anchor in a world that kept pulling them under. "Please," she prayed silently, "please let me be doing the right thing." The fire crackled, the wind howled, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf sang to the rising moon. The half-wolf came back 3 days later. Eleanor was hanging laundry on the line Silas had strung between 2 posts when she saw it. Gray fur catching the morning light, yellow eyes watching her from the tree line. She froze, a wet shirt dripping in her hands. The animal didn't move, just watched. "I see you," she said quietly. "You hungry?" She went inside, ignoring Ben's questions, and cut a chunk of dried venison from their supplies. When she came back out, the half-wolf hadn't moved. She tossed the meat halfway between them. The animal studied her for a long moment. Then it limped forward, snatched the meat, and retreated to the shadows. But it didn't leave. When Silas returned that evening, the half-wolf was still there, curled beneath a pine tree at the edge of the clearing. "Told you," he said, eyeing the animal. "Wild things remember." "What do I do with it?" "Nothing. Let it make its own choice." He handed her a brace of quail. "If it stays, it stays. If it goes, it goes. You can't force loyalty. Only earn it." Over the next week, Eleanor earned it. She left food out every morning, never approached, never pushed. Just let the animal come closer on its own terms. By the 5th day, it was eating from a bowl she set on the porch. By the 7th, it let Ben sit nearby while it ate. "Can we name him, Mama?" Ben asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "He's not ours to name." "But he's staying, isn't he? Mr. Silas said if he stays, he stays." Eleanor looked at the half-wolf, who was watching her with those intelligent yellow eyes. "Shadow," she said finally, "because he follows us like one." Ben grinned. "Shadow. I like it." That night, Shadow slept on the porch for the first time. The shooting lessons continued every dawn. Silas was a brutal teacher. He made Eleanor load and reload until her fingers bled, made her aim at targets until her arms shook, made her fire until the sound no longer made her flinch. "Again," he said after she missed a tin can for the 3rd time. "My arm hurts." "Your arm will hurt a lot worse with a bullet in it." "Again." She raised the rifle, sighted, breathed, squeezed. The can flew off the fence post. "Better." Silas took the rifle from her. "But you hesitated. Hesitation gets you killed." "I was aiming." "You were thinking. Out here, thinking and aiming are the same thing. You see a threat, you shoot. No thinking, no hesitating." He demonstrated, the rifle flowing up smooth as water. 3 shots, 3 cans down. Instinct, that's what keeps you alive. "I'm not a killer." "You killed a man 2 weeks ago." Eleanor's stomach turned. She still saw that scarred face in her dreams, still felt the pistol buck in her hand. "That was different." "How?" "He was going to hurt us." "And the next man who comes for you? And the one after that?" Silas stepped closer. "Wade's got a dozen men, Mrs. Morgan, maybe more. Every one of them knows your face now. Every one of them wants the bounty on your husband's head." His voice dropped. "You think they'll show you mercy?" You think they'll care that you're a mother? That your boy is only 7? Eleanor's hands clenched at her sides. No. Then stop being soft. Soft gets your son killed. Soft gets you worse than killed. He pressed the rifle back into her hands. Again, until you can do it without thinking. She practiced until her shoulders screamed, until her wounded arm throbbed so bad she could barely lift it, until the sun climbed high and Ben came out asking about lunch. "That's enough for today," Silas said finally. "You're getting better." "I don't feel better." "You will." He started toward the cabin, then paused. "You got a good eye, Mrs. Morgan. Steady hands when you stop overthinking. Keep practicing, and you might just survive this." It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd ever given her. That afternoon, while Silas was out checking his trap lines, Eleanor found the letters. She wasn't snooping, not exactly. She was looking for more bandages in the trunk by the bed, when her fingers brushed against a bundle tied with faded ribbon. Letters, dozens of them, written in a delicate feminine hand. She knew she shouldn't read them, knew it was a violation of something sacred. But her eyes caught the first line of the topmost letter, and she couldn't look away. "My dearest Silas, I know you carry guilt like a stone in your chest. I know you blame yourself for leaving us that day. But you must know, you must believe that nothing could have changed what happened. The men who came were evil, pure evil. And evil does not negotiate. It does not spare. It simply destroys." Eleanor's throat tightened. "What I need you to understand, my love, is that our deaths are not your fault. They are the fault of war, of hate, of men who see violence as the answer to every question. You could not have saved us, even if you'd been there. They would have killed you too. And then who would remember us? Who would carry our names into the future? Live, Silas. That's all I ask. Live and find something worth living for. Not for me. Not for Lily. For yourself. Because you deserve happiness, even if you can't see it right now. You deserve love. You deserve peace. Find them, please. For me. Forever yours, Clara." Eleanor carefully retied the bundle and placed it back in the trunk, her hands trembling. She understood now why Silas lived alone, why he pushed everyone away, why he'd threatened her that first night, then shown her mercy. He was punishing himself, had been for 8 years, building walls so high no one could climb them, because the last time he let someone in, he'd lost everything. And now, here she was, a stranger with a child, forcing herself into his solitary world. No wonder he didn't sleep. No wonder he kept his distance. Every moment she and Ben spent in this cabin was a reminder of everything he'd lost. When Silas returned that evening, Eleanor didn't mention the letters. But she looked at him differently, saw the grief behind the stone face, saw the man behind the beast. "You're staring," he said over dinner. "Sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just stop." Ben looked between them, confusion on his young face. "Are you two fighting?" "No, baby. We're just—" Eleanor searched for the right word. "Learning each other." Silas snorted. "That's one way to put it." After Ben fell asleep, Eleanor gathered her courage. "I found the letters," she said quietly. "I wasn't snooping. I was looking for bandages and they were just there. I only read one. I'm sorry." Silas's face went blank. His hand stilled on the knife he was sharpening. "Which one?" The one on top, where she tells you to live. Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. Shadow shifted on the porch outside, his claws clicking against the wood. She wrote that 3 days before they killed her, Silas said finally. She knew something was wrong. Knew the soldiers had been asking about Confederate deserters in the area. She wanted me to have something to hold on to if... He stopped, swallowed. If the worst happened. She loved you very much. She was too good for me. Always was. He resumed sharpening the knife, but his movements were jerky now, uncoordinated. I was a deserter. Did I tell you that? Walked away from the Confederate Army in the last year of the war. Saw too much death. Couldn't stomach it anymore. That's not cowardice. That's conscience. Tell that to the Union soldiers who came looking for information. His voice went hard. They didn't care that I'd turned against the cause. Didn't care that I was trying to live peaceful. All they saw was a rebel who might know where other rebels were hiding. And when you couldn't tell them, they took it out on my family. Silas set down the knife. His hands were shaking now. I was 2 miles away, hunting. Heard the shots, but thought it was someone after deer. By the time I got back... He couldn't finish. Eleanor rose from her chair and crossed to where he sat. She didn't touch him, didn't presume, just stood close enough that he could feel her presence. It wasn't your fault. Everyone says that. Because it's true. Then why does it feel like a lie? He looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw the broken man behind the fortress walls. 8 years, Mrs. Morgan. 8 years of waking up every morning and wishing I hadn't. 8 years of wondering why I survived when they didn't. 8 years of trying to find a reason to keep breathing. Did you find one? No. He paused. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Eleanor knelt in front of him, putting herself at eye level. Clara wanted you to live. She wanted you to find happiness. That's what the letter said. Clara was an optimist. Clara knew you. She knew you'd punish yourself forever if she let you. So she gave you permission to move on. Eleanor held his gaze. Take it, Silas. Take the permission. It's not too late. Something shifted in his eyes. A crack in the armor. A glimpse of light through the darkness. You should be afraid of me, he said quietly. You should take your boy and run. Probably. Then why don't you? Eleanor considered the question. Considered all the reasons she should flee and all the reasons she hadn't. Because I see you, she said finally. Not the beast everyone talks about. Not the outlaw or the hermit or the threat. I see a man who lost everything and kept going anyway. A man who could have left us to die and didn't. A man who teaches my son to whittle and makes sure we have enough to eat and stands guard all night so we can sleep safe. Silas's breath caught. That's not who I am. It's exactly who you are. You just forgot for a while. The fire popped, sending sparks swirling toward the chimney. Outside, Shadow whined softly, as if sensing the weight of the moment. Clara would have liked you, Silas said roughly. She'd have said you were stubborn as a mule and twice as ornery. Eleanor smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. They stayed like that for a long moment, kneeling face to face in the firelight. Something had changed between them. Some wall had crumbled. We should sleep, Eleanor said finally. Dawn comes early. Yeah, but Silas didn't move. Mrs. Morgan? Eleanor, if we're going to live together, you might as well use my name. Eleanor. He tested it like a foreign word. Thank you. For what? for seeing me. She rose and returned to her bed, pulling the blankets up around Ben's sleeping form. But she lay awake for a long time, listening to Silas move around the cabin, banking the fire, checking the locks, settling into his chair. Not sleeping. Never sleeping. But maybe, she thought, hurting just a little less. The next morning brought visitors. Eleanor was grinding corn when Shadow suddenly leapt to his feet, hackles raised, a growl rumbling in his throat. "Ben, inside!" She grabbed the rifle leaning by the door. "Now!" Ben didn't argue. He'd learned not to. 3 riders emerged from the tree line. Eleanor's heart seized when she recognized the man in front. Scarred face, tobacco-stained teeth. One of the men from the wagon attack. One she hadn't killed. "Well, well." The man reined his horse to a stop, grinning at her. "Told Jacob we should check the high country. Said any woman dumb enough to run up here would be dead inside a week." His grin widened. "Guess I was wrong." Eleanor raised the rifle, steady, just like Silas taught her. "Leave, now!" "Now, that ain't friendly." The man leaned forward in his saddle. "We just want to talk. About your husband. About the $12,000 he stole." "I don't know where William is. I haven't seen him in 2 years." "See, that's what you said before. Right before you shot Murphy in the face." The man's grin faded. "Jacob's awful sore about Murphy. They was cousins." "Murphy was trying to grab me. I defended myself." "Murder is what you did. And Wade wants payment." He nodded to the other 2 riders. "Either you come with us peaceful-like, or we burn this cabin to the ground with you in it." Shadow's growl deepened. The half-wolf had positioned himself between Eleanor and the riders, teeth bared, muscles coiled. "That's a fine animal," the lead rider said. "Might fetch a good price if we skin it clean." "Touch that animal and I'll—" The shot came from nowhere. The lead rider's hat flew off his head, a hole clean through the crown. He yelped and nearly fell from his horse. Silas emerged from the forest like a ghost, his rifle already trained on the second rider. "Next one goes through someone's skull," he said calmly. "Your choice, whose?" The riders froze. Eleanor could see the fear in their eyes. Whatever reputation Silas had out here, it was clearly well earned. "We don't want no trouble with you, Cole." The lead rider's bravado had evaporated. "This is between us and the woman. The woman's under my protection. That makes it my business. Jacob won't like this. Jacob can come tell me himself. He knows where I live." Silas's voice dropped to something cold and deadly. "Or maybe I'll save him the trip. Maybe I'll track you boys back to whatever hole you crawled out of and introduce myself proper." The riders exchanged nervous glances. "We got no quarrel with you, Cole." "Then ride out, now, and tell Jacob Wade that if he wants Eleanor Morgan, he goes through me first." Eleanor's heart stuttered at the sound of her name in his mouth. Not Mrs. Morgan. Eleanor. The lead rider gathered his reins, his face twisted with impotent fury. "This ain't over." "It better be." Silas took a step forward, and all 3 horses shied back. "Because next time, I won't aim for your hat." They rode out fast, disappearing down the trail in a cloud of dust and fear. Silas waited until they were gone before lowering his rifle. Then he turned to Eleanor, his face hard. "You did good. Didn't panic." "I wanted to panic." "But you didn't. That's what counts." He moved toward the cabin. "They'll be back. Wade won't let this go." "What do we do?" "We prepare." He paused at the door, looking back at her. "You ready to stop practicing and start fighting?" Eleanor thought about Ben inside, about the life they were building here against all odds, about the man standing in front of her who'd just risked his life for them. "Yes," she said. I'm ready. Silas nodded once. Good, because war is coming, Eleanor, and I need to know he'll stand with me when it does. I will, she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. I will. Shadow padded over and pressed against her leg, his yellow eyes fixed on the trail where the riders had disappeared. 3 creatures bound together by circumstance. A wounded woman, a broken man, a half-wild animal who'd chosen loyalty over freedom. Against them, an army of killers hunting a debt that wasn't even theirs. The odds were impossible. But Eleanor had stopped believing in impossible the day she climbed out of that overturned wagon and chose to live. Ben, she called toward the cabin. Come on out. It's safe now. The door creaked open. Her son's face appeared, pale but determined. I saw through the window, he said. Mr. Silas scared them away. Yes, he did. Will they come back? Eleanor looked at Silas. He looked back at her. Probably, she said honestly, but we'll be ready. Ben nodded slowly, then he walked over to Silas and slipped his small hand into the man's massive one. I'm glad you're here, Ben said simply. I'm glad you're protecting us. Silas stared down at the boy for a long moment. Something cracked in his stone face. Something soft and painful and terribly human. Yeah, he said roughly, his voice thick. Me too, boy. Me too. And standing there in the morning light, with danger retreating and danger approaching, and everything uncertain, Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt since before William destroyed their lives. Hope. Small and fragile, but growing. 2 weeks passed without sign of Wade's men. Eleanor knew better than to relax. Silas had made that clear. The silence wasn't peace. It was preparation. Somewhere out there, Jacob Wade was gathering his forces, planning his next move. So they prepared too. Silas taught her to set traps around the perimeter. Not for animals this time. For men. Tripwires that would rattle cans filled with pebbles. Pits concealed beneath pine needles. Escape routes marked with notches and trees that only they would recognize. If shooting starts, you take Ben and run, Silas said, showing her the path north. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Just run. I won't leave you. You will if I tell you to. No. Eleanor stopped walking and faced him. I won't. Silas's jaw tightened. This ain't negotiable. You're right. It's not. She stepped closer, refusing to back down. We survive together or we die together. That's how this works now. You got a boy to think about. And Ben needs both of us. He's already lost one father. I won't make him watch another one die. The words hung between them. Eleanor realized what she'd said a moment too late. Another father. Silas went very still. I ain't his father. No, but you're the closest thing he's got. She swallowed hard. And maybe the closest thing I've got to anything. The silence stretched. Shadow watched them from a few feet away, head tilted, as if following the conversation. Eleanor, Silas's voice was rough. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She held his gaze. I spent 5 years married to a man who never saw me, never really saw me. He saw what I could give him, what I could do for him, but not me. And you think I'm different? I know you're different. You see everything, Silas. That's what terrifies me, and that's what makes me trust you. He looked away, his throat working. Trust gets people killed out here. So does being alone. Another silence, longer this time. When Silas finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I can't lose anyone else. You understand? I can't. Then don't. Eleanor reached out and touched his arm, just briefly, just enough. Fight with me instead of for me. Let me stand beside you, not behind you. Silas looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. Something shifted in his expression. The walls didn't crumble, but a door opened. Just a crack. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. That night, he didn't sit in the chair by the fire. He sat on the floor beside it, closer to where Eleanor worked on mending clothes. Not touching, not speaking, just present. Ben fell asleep between them, his head on Eleanor's lap, his feet near Silas's knee. He's a good boy, Silas said. He is. Strong, like his mama. Eleanor smiled despite herself. He's got his father's stubbornness. William's one good quality. Stubbornness ain't always bad. Kept you alive this long. Kept us both alive. Silas reached down and carefully adjusted the blanket over Ben's shoulders. The gesture was so gentle, so natural, that Eleanor's heart ached. I never wanted children, she admitted quietly. When I married William, I thought we'd wait, build something first. But then Ben came, and I couldn't imagine life without him. Clara wanted a dozen. Silas's voice was distant, remembering. Said she'd fill the house with noise and laughter, drive me crazy with it. A pause. We only had Lily. After her, Clara couldn't. The birth was hard. I'm sorry. She never complained, never blamed me, just loved Lily twice as much to make up for the ones we'd never have. He stared into the fire. Sometimes I wonder if that's why she died. God's punishment for me wanting to keep her all to myself. God doesn't work that way. How do you know? Because if God punished selfishness with death, there wouldn't be anyone left alive. Silas looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time, Eleanor saw something like hope in his eyes. You're a strange woman, Eleanor Morgan. So I've been told. I mean it as a compliment. I know, she smiled. I'm taking it as one. The fire crackled between them. Shadow sighed in his sleep on the porch, and somewhere outside, the world kept turning, indifferent to the small moments of connection happening in a cabin hidden in the hills. The trip to Cedar Creek came without warning. We need supplies, Silas announced 3 days later. Ammunition mostly, some medicine, things I can't make or trap. Is it safe? No, he checked his rifle. But necessary. We're running low on powder and shot. Can't fight Wade with empty guns. I'm coming with you. Eleanor, I'm coming. She was already gathering her shawl. Ben can stay here with Shadow. He knows the hiding spots. And I need to see this town. Need to know what we're dealing with. Silas looked like he wanted to argue. Then he simply nodded. Stay close. Don't talk to anyone unless I say. And if trouble starts, get behind me and stay there. I thought we agreed I'd stand beside you. In a fight, yes. In town? He shook his head. Town's different. People talk. People watch. I'd rather they watch me than you. They left at dawn, Ben hugging Eleanor tight before she climbed onto the horse behind Silas. You'll come back? Ben asked, his voice small. Always, baby. Always. Shadow sat beside the boy, solid and watchful. Eleanor felt better knowing they had each other. The ride to Cedar Creek took most of the day. Eleanor had never been this close to Silas for this long. She could feel the tension in his muscles, the way he constantly scanned the horizon for threats. His back was warm against her chest, and she found herself matching her breathing to his. "Nervous?" he asked, without turning around. "A little." "Good. Nervous keeps you sharp." They reached town as the sun began to set. Cedar Creek was smaller than Eleanor expected. A single main street lined with weather-worn buildings, a general store, a saloon, a church with a crooked steeple, a handful of houses scattered around the edges. People stopped and stared as they rode in. Eleanor felt their eyes like physical weight. "They know you," she murmured. "They know of me. Most have never seen me up close." Silas reined the horse to a stop outside the general store. "Remember what I said. Stay close. Don't talk." They dismounted and went inside. The shopkeeper was a thin man with spectacles and nervous hands. His eyes widened when he saw Silas. "Mr. Cole! Been a while." "Henderson." Silas handed over a list. "I need these. Whatever you've got." Henderson scanned the list, his eyebrows rising. "That's a lot of ammunition." "That a problem?" "No, sir. No problem at all." He scurried off to gather the supplies. Eleanor pretended to examine a display of fabric while her ears strained for any useful information. The store was mostly empty, but she could hear voices from outside. Curious. Suspicious. The door banged open behind them. Eleanor spun, her hand going to the pistol hidden in her skirts. But it wasn't Wade's men. It was a woman. She was perhaps 50, with steel-gray hair and a face that had seen hard years. She wore a dress that had once been fine, but was now faded and patched. Her eyes swept the room and landed on Eleanor with something like recognition. "So it's true," the woman said. "Silas Cole finally brought a woman down from his mountain." Silas stepped between them. "Minerva." "Don't you Minerva me, you stubborn fool." The woman pushed past him and studied Eleanor with sharp eyes. "You're the one they're looking for. The widow with the boy." Eleanor's blood chilled. "How do you know that?" "Honey, everyone knows. Wade's men have been in and out of this town for 2 weeks asking questions, offering money for information." Minerva snorted. "Course nobody here's dumb enough to cross Silas Cole for a few dollars." "Who are you?" "Minerva Sutton. I run the boarding house. And the saloon." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And before you judge me for that, know that I've sheltered more runaway women than I can count. Wade's type are my specialty." Eleanor didn't know what to say. "She's not looking for shelter," Silas said. "She's got shelter." "With you?" Minerva laughed. "Lord have mercy. You must be something special to crack that stone wall." "I haven't cracked anything." "Sure you haven't." Minerva's eyes softened. "Listen, I don't know what your situation is, and I don't need to know. But if Wade comes for you, you've got friends in this town. People who remember what his kind did to their families, their farms." She glanced at Silas. "And people who owe this grumpy bastard more than they'll ever admit." "I didn't ask for owing." "You never do. That's why you've got it." Minerva turned back to Eleanor. "You need anything, you come to me. Anytime, day or night." "Why would you help a stranger?" "Because I was a stranger once." Minerva's voice dropped. "Showed up in this town 20 years ago, with nothing but bruises and broken bones, and a husband I'd finally found the courage to run from. People here took me in, fed me, hid me when he came looking." She straightened. "We take care of our own in Cedar Creek, and anyone Silas Cole claims is one of our own." Claim. The word echoed in Eleanor's mind. "Thank you," she managed. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're still breathing." Minerva headed for the door. "And Silas, Try smiling once in a while. Might not kill you." She was gone before he could respond. "Friend of yours?" Eleanor asked. "Something like that." Silas's voice was gruff, but Eleanor caught the hint of fondness beneath it. Her husband was a mean drunk. Used to beat her bloody every Saturday night. One day she showed up at my cabin, half dead, asking for help. "What did you do?" "Paid her husband a visit." Silas collected the supplies Henderson had gathered. He left town the next day. Never came back. "Is he alive?" Silas shrugged. "Last I heard, he was drinking himself to death in El Paso. Some men don't need killing. They do it to themselves eventually." They loaded the supplies and prepared to leave. But as they mounted the horse, a voice called out from across the street. "Mrs. Morgan?" Eleanor turned. A man stood on the porch of the church. Black coat, kind face, dark skin that marked him as one of the freedmen who'd made their way west after the war. "Reverend Blackwood," Silas said quietly. "The man I told you about." The Reverend approached, his movements slow and deliberate. "I've heard about your troubles, ma'am. The whole town has." He removed his hat. "I wanted you to know that you're welcome in my church, you and your son. No judgment, no questions." "Thank you, Reverend." "I also wanted you to know," he hesitated. "There was a man here 3 days ago, asking about you, but not one of Wade's men." Eleanor's heart stopped. "What did he look like?" "Thin, fair hair, nervous eyes." Blackwood met her gaze. "He asked specifically about a woman named Eleanor. Said he was looking for his wife." The world tilted beneath her. William. William was alive. William was here. William was looking for her. "What did you tell him?" she whispered. "Nothing. Told him I hadn't seen anyone matching that description." Blackwood's voice was firm. "Whatever that man did to you, ma'am, it's written all over your face. I won't help someone who puts that kind of fear in a woman's eyes." Eleanor couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Silas's hand found her shoulder, steady, anchoring. "Where did he go?" Silas asked. "South, toward San Antonio." Blackwood replaced his hat. "But if Wade's men are looking for him too, I doubt he'll stay hidden long." They rode out of Cedar Creek in silence. Eleanor's mind raced. William was alive. William was close. William was being hunted by the same men hunting her. And if they found him, "He'll lead them straight to us," she said finally. "Won't he?" "Probably." Silas's voice was grim. "If Wade catches him, he'll talk. Men like your husband always do." "He's not my husband anymore." "The law says different." "The law can go to hell." Eleanor's voice shook with sudden fury. "He abandoned us, left us to starve, and now he's going to get us killed because he couldn't stay hidden?" "Maybe he wasn't running anymore. Maybe he was looking for you." "Why would he do that?" Silas was quiet for a moment. "Guilt does strange things to a man. Believe me, I know." They rode on as darkness fell. Eleanor pressed her face against Silas's back and let herself feel the fear she'd been holding at bay. William was coming. Wade was coming. The fragile peace they'd built was crumbling around them. But beneath the fear, something else burned, something fierce and bright. She had found something worth fighting for. A home, a family, a future. And she would die before she let anyone take it from her. When they finally reached the cabin, Ben came running out with Shadow at his heels. "Mama, you came back!" She swept him into her arms and held him tight, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling his small heart beat against hers. "I told you I would, baby. I told you." Over Ben's shoulder, she saw Silas watching them. His face was unreadable in the darkness, but she knew what he was thinking. War was coming, and now they knew from which direction. "Inside," Silas said quietly. "We need to talk." They went in together, the door closing behind them against the night. But the night was patient, and somewhere out there, the men who wanted them dead were patient too. Eleanor looked at Silas, at Ben, at the cabin that had become their home. "Whatever happens," she said, "we face it together." Silas nodded slowly. Together. It was a promise, and in this unforgiving land, promises were the only currency that mattered. William came on a Tuesday. Eleanor was teaching Ben his letters by the fire when Shadow's growl cut through the quiet. The half-wolf rose from his spot by the door, hackles raised, teeth bared at something outside. Silas grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. His face went hard. "Stay here," he said. "Both of you." "Who is it?" "A man. Alone. On foot." Silas's jaw tightened. Fair hair. Thin build. Eleanor's stomach dropped. She knew before Silas said it. "William." She pushed past him and looked through the window. And there he was. The man she'd married. The man who'd abandoned her. The man who'd set all of this in motion. He looked terrible. Gaunt and dirty, clothes torn, stumbling up the trail like a man who'd been running for days. His eyes darted constantly, checking the shadows, expecting death at any moment. "Mama?" Ben's voice was small. "Mama, who is that?" Eleanor couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. Silas opened the door and stepped onto the porch, rifle raised. "That's far enough." William stopped. His hands went up, trembling. "Please, I'm not armed. I'm not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" "I'm looking for my wife, Eleanor Morgan. I was told she—" William's eyes found her in the doorway. His face crumpled. "Ellie! Oh God, Ellie!" He started forward. Silas cocked the rifle. "I said that's far enough." "You don't understand. I need to talk to her. I need to explain." "You need to stay right where you are before I put a hole through your chest." Eleanor's hand found Silas's arm. "Let him speak." "Eleanor, he came all this way. He's got Wade's men hunting him too. He's not a threat." She stepped around Silas, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "He's just pathetic." William flinched, like she'd struck him. "Ellie, please. I know what I did. I know there's no excuse, but you have to believe me. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Any of what, William?" Eleanor's voice was cold. "Abandoning us? Stealing our money? Running off with your saloon whore?" She took another step forward. "Or maybe you mean the murder, the $12,000 you stole from Jacob Wade, the reason men have been trying to kill your son for the past month." William's face went white. "Ben? They went after Ben?" "They went after all of us." Eleanor's hands clenched at her sides. "We were attacked on the road. Our escorts were killed. I was shot. Your son watched men die in front of him." Her voice cracked. "And the whole time, I had to pretend you were dead. Had to lie and say you died of fever, because at least that was honorable. At least that didn't make me a fool who married a murderer. I'm not a murderer. Wade's brother would disagree. That was an accident." William took a step forward, desperation in his eyes. "We were playing cards. He accused me of cheating. Drew on me first. I just reacted. I didn't mean to kill him." "But you did. And then you stole $12,000 and ran." "I panicked. I didn't know what else to do." "You could have stayed." Eleanor's voice rose. "You could have faced what you'd done. You could have been a man for once in your miserable life, instead of running and leaving your family to pay for your sins." William crumpled to his knees in the dirt. "I know. God, Ellie, I know. I've spent every day since then regretting it. Every single day. And yet here you are, still running, still bringing danger to my door. I came to warn you." He looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. "Wade's coming. Tomorrow, maybe. The day after. He caught one of my contacts in San Antonio. Beat him until he talked." William swallowed hard. "He knows where you are, Ellie. He knows about the cabin, about the mountain man." Silas stepped forward. "How many men?" "A dozen, maybe more. Armed to the teeth." William's voice shook. "I tried to lead them away, tried to draw them south, but they split up. Half went after me, half came here." "And you led the other half straight to us." "I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't mean to." Silas grabbed William by the collar and hauled him to his feet. "You didn't mean to abandon your family. You didn't mean to kill a man. You didn't mean to steal. You didn't mean to lead killers to our door." His voice dropped to a growl. "Seems like you don't mean to do a lot of things, but they happen anyway." "Please." William was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I don't deserve anything, but I can help. I know Wade. I know how he thinks. I can—" "Pa?" Everyone froze. Ben stood in the doorway, his small face pale. He was looking at William with an expression Eleanor couldn't read. "Pa?" Ben said again. "You're my pa?" William's breath caught. "Ben, God, Ben, you've gotten so big. Mama said you were dead." I know she did, and I'm so sorry. You left us." Ben's voice was flat, empty. "Mama cried every night for a whole month. I heard her. She thought I was sleeping, but I heard her. Ben, please. You're not my pa." The boy's hands clenched at his sides. "My pa would have protected us. My pa would have stayed." He looked at Silas. "Mr. Silas is more my pa than you ever were." The words hit William like bullets. He staggered back, his face twisted with grief. "Ben, I love you. I've always loved you." "No, you don't. You don't know what love is." Ben's chin trembled, but he didn't cry. "Love means staying. Love means keeping people safe. Love means being there, even when it's hard." He turned and walked back inside, Shadow following at his heels. Eleanor watched him go, her heart breaking and swelling with pride at the same time. Her boy, her brave, strong boy. "You should go," she said to William. "There's nothing for you here." "But Wade—" "We'll handle Wade. We've been handling things since you left. That's what survivors do." William looked at her, at Silas, at the cabin that should have been his home, the family that should have been his future. "I could stay, fight with you." "No." "Ellie, please." "I said no." Eleanor's voice was final. "You want to help? Draw Wade's men away, lead them south, give us time to prepare." "And then what? Where do I go?" "I don't care." She met his eyes, and there was no mercy in her gaze. "You made your choices, William. Now live with them, or die with them. Either way, it's not my concern anymore." William stood there for a long moment, broken and beaten. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Ellie, for everything. I know you are. It doesn't change anything." He turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees like a ghost. Eleanor watched until she couldn't see him anymore, then turned back to the cabin. Silas stood on the porch, watching her. You could have let him stay. No, I couldn't. She climbed the steps and stopped in front of him. He'd have gotten us killed. Not on purpose, but that's who he is. Trouble follows him like shadow follows light. Speaking of shadow, Silas glanced at the half-wolf, who had returned to his spot by the door. He didn't even growl at your husband. Ex-husband. The law can go to hell, remember? Eleanor almost smiled. Besides, Shadow knows. He can sense weakness. William was never a threat, just a coward running from his own shadow. Silas studied her for a long moment. You're different than when you came here. I'm stronger than when I came here. That's your doing. No, he shook his head. The strength was always there. I just helped you find it. That night, they prepared for war. Silas showed Eleanor where he'd hidden extra weapons, showed Ben the safest spots in the cabin, the places to hide if shooting started. They filled water buckets in case of fire, loaded every gun, sharpened every knife. If they come in force, we can't win a straight fight, Silas said. Too many of them. Our only chance is to pick them off, use the traps, use the terrain. And if that's not enough, then we run, north to the ridge, just like I showed you. Together this time, he met her eyes. Together. Ben fell asleep early, exhausted by the day's emotions. Shadow curled beside him, ever vigilant. Eleanor covered them both with a blanket and sat down by the fire. He called you Pa, she said quietly. Silas stiffened. I heard. How do you feel about that? He was silent for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Terrified, he said finally. Honored. Guilty. He stared into the flames. I haven't been anyone's pa in 8 years. Don't know if I remember how. You've been doing just fine. Have I? He looked at her. I've been teaching him to shoot and trap and survive. That's not fathering. That's just training. It's both. Eleanor moved closer to him. Fathering isn't just playing games and telling stories. It's preparing them for the world, keeping them safe, being there when they need you. She paused. You've done all of that. Clara would have known what to do. She was the natural parent. I just followed her lead. Then follow mine. Eleanor took his hand. Because I don't know what I'm doing either. But I know I'm better at it with you beside me. Silas looked down at their joined hands. His fingers tightened around hers. Eleanor, I need to tell you something. Okay? When you first came here, I thought you were a burden, a complication, something I had to deal with because the alternative was letting you die. He swallowed. But now I can't imagine this cabin without you in it. Can't imagine going back to the silence. Then don't. What? Don't go back to the silence. She held his gaze. We're done with alone, Silas. Both of us. Whatever comes tomorrow, whatever Wade throws at us, we face it as a family. Family. He tested the word like it was new to him. I haven't had a family in a long time. You have one now. She squeezed his hand. If you want it. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. Then he leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle at first, hesitant, like a man relearning something he'd forgotten. But then her hands came up to cup his face, and something broke loose inside him. He kissed her deeper, pouring 8 years of loneliness and grief and desperate hope into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Neither do I, she smiled. But here we are anyway. They stayed like that for a long moment, Two broken people finding wholeness in each other. The fire crackled. Shadow's ears twitched in his sleep. And somewhere outside, the world kept turning toward danger. But inside this cabin, inside this moment, there was peace. Wade came at dawn. The cans rattled first, warning of approaching men. Then Shadow's growl, low and deadly. Then the distant crack of hoofbeats. Silas was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Eleanor, take Ben to the hiding spot, now." "I'm staying." "Eleanor, I'm staying." She grabbed her own rifle. "We do this together, remember?" He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face. But there wasn't time. "Ben?" She shook her son awake. "Baby, you need to hide. Remember the spot Mr. Silas showed you? Under the floor?" Ben's eyes went wide with fear, but he nodded. "Shadow comes with me." "Yes, Shadow goes with you." They pulled up the hidden trap door and lowered Ben into the crawl space beneath the cabin. Shadow dropped down after him, pressing close against the boy's side. "Don't come out until we come get you," Eleanor said. "No matter what you hear. Promise me." "I promise, Mama." Ben's voice shook. "I love you." "I love you too, baby. More than anything." She closed the trap door and scattered the rug over it. "They're here," Silas said from the window. "I count 8. Wade's in front." "That's less than William said." "Maybe the others is circling around. Maybe someone after him." Silas checked his rifle. "Either way, 8's enough to kill us if we're not careful." The hoofbeats stopped. A voice rang out across the clearing. "Cole! I know you're in there. Send out the woman and we'll let you live." Silas moved to the door and cracked it open an inch. "She's not going anywhere, Wade. Turn around and ride out." "Can't do that." The voice was closer now. "She's got a debt to pay. Her husband killed my brother, stole my money. Someone's got to answer for that. Her husband's not here." "I know. We caught him an hour ago heading south." A cold laugh. "Didn't take much convincing to get him to talk. Told us everything. Where the cabin is, how many guns you got, the boy hiding inside." Eleanor's blood went cold. "He's not talking anymore," Wade continued. "But he said enough. So here's how this is going to go. You send out the woman and the boy. I take what's owed. And you go back to your hermit life like nothing happened. And if I refuse, then we burn the cabin with all of you inside. Your choice." Silas looked at Eleanor. She saw the question in his eyes. She answered by raising her rifle. "I guess we're doing this the hard way," Silas called out. "Come and get her if you can." The first shot shattered the window. Everything happened fast after that. Silas fired through the broken glass, dropping one man from his horse. Eleanor aimed for the riders circling left, catching one in the shoulder. He screamed and fell. Return fire peppered the cabin walls. Wood splintered. Glass rained down. Smoke filled the air. "They're going for the sides," Silas shouted. "Cover the back." Eleanor ran to the rear window and fired at shadows moving through the trees. Hit one. Missed another. Her hands were steady now, the lessons Silas had drilled into her taking over. No thinking, just instinct. Sight. Breathe. Squeeze. A man burst through the back door. Eleanor spun and fired without hesitation. He dropped at her feet, eyes wide with surprise. She didn't feel anything. Couldn't afford to feel anything. "Eleanor!" Silas's voice cut through the chaos. "Down!" She dropped flat as bullets tore through the space where her head had been. Silas appeared beside her, blood running from a cut on his forehead. "We can't hold them. Too many." "The tunnel." "What?" The hiding spot. It opens outside, past the tree line. Ben knows the way." She grabbed his arm. "We get Ben, we run, we fight another day." Silas hesitated for only a second. Then he nodded. They pulled up the trap door. Ben looked up at them with terrified eyes, Shadow pressed against his side. "Come on, baby, we're leaving." "What about the cabin?" "The cabin doesn't matter. You matter. Now move." They crawled through the tight space, emerging behind the woodpile just as flames began licking at the cabin's roof. Wade's men had made good on their threat. "The ridge," Silas whispered. "Stay low. Stay quiet." They ran. Shots rang out behind them, men shouting. But they had cover now, the forest swallowing them whole. Shadow led the way, his yellow eyes gleaming in the dim light. They ran until Eleanor's lungs burned, until Ben stumbled, and Silas scooped him up without breaking stride, until the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Finally, they stopped at the ridge Silas had shown her weeks ago. The cave was there, just as he'd promised. Small, but hidden. Safe. They collapsed inside, gasping for breath. "Is everyone okay?" Eleanor managed between gasps. "I'm okay, Mama." Ben's voice was small, but steady. "Silas?" "I'll live." He was examining the wound on his head. "Bullet grazed me. Looks worse than it is." Eleanor sagged against the cave wall, relief flooding through her. They'd made it. Against impossible odds, they'd made it. "What now?" Ben asked. Silas looked at Eleanor. She looked back at him. "Now we rebuild," she said. "Find a new home. Start over." "And Wade?" "Wade lost half his men tonight. More, if my count's right. He won't be coming after us again anytime soon." Silas pulled Eleanor close. "And if he does, we'll be ready." Ben crawled between them, Shadow settling at their feet. The four of them huddled together in the darkness, battered and bloody, but alive. "Mama?" Ben whispered. "Yes, baby." "Is Mr. Silas my pa now? For real?" Eleanor looked at Silas. He looked back at her. "If he wants to be," she said softly. Silas reached out and ruffled Ben's hair. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "Yeah, I reckon I do." Ben smiled, the first real smile Eleanor had seen from him in days. "Good," the boy said, "because I already told Shadow, and he agrees." They stayed in the cave for 3 days until Silas deemed it safe to travel. Then they made their way to Cedar Creek, where Reverend Blackwood and Minerva Sutton welcomed them with open arms. The wedding was small, just them and a handful of witnesses. Ben stood beside Silas, holding the ring. Shadow waited outside the church, patient as ever. When Reverend Blackwood pronounced them husband and wife, Eleanor felt something she'd thought she'd lost forever. Home. Not a place, not a cabin or a town or a piece of land. Home was the man standing beside her. The boy grinning up at them, the half-wild creature who'd chosen them as his pack. Home was choosing to stay when everything in the world said, run. They built a new cabin that spring, closer to Cedar Creek, but still in the mountains Silas loved. Ben started school, making friends for the first time in his life. Eleanor helped Minerva at the boarding house some days, learning the business, building a future. And Silas? Silas learned to sleep again. Not every night, not always peacefully, but sometimes, with Eleanor curled against his chest and Ben snoring softly in the next room, and Shadow on the porch keeping watch, he would close his eyes and drift off, without dreaming of fire and death. One night, as they sat on their new porch watching the sun set over the hills, Ben playing with Shadow in the yard, Eleanor took Silas's hand. "You saved us," she said. "That first night in the storm, you saved our lives. You saved mine right back." He lifted her hand to his lips. "I was dead inside for 8 years, Eleanor. Walking and breathing, but dead. You brought me back." "We brought each other back." He smiled, that rare expression that still took her breath away. "Yeah, I guess we did." Ben ran up to them, breathless and laughing, Shadow at his heels. "Ma, Pa, Shadow caught a rabbit. Can we keep it?" "Rabbits are for eating, not keeping," Silas said. "But he's so cute." "So is supper." Ben made a face, and Eleanor laughed, and Shadow barked once, as if joining the joke. "This," she thought, "this is what I was fighting for. This is what made everything worth it. A family forged in fire. A love born from survival. A home built on the ashes of everything they'd lost." Some families were born, others were made. Theirs was both. And as the sun sank below the horizon and the first stars appeared in the Texas sky, Eleanor Morgan Cole leaned into her husband's embrace and let herself believe in forever. Not the fairy tale kind, not the easy kind, the real kind. The kind you fought for, the kind you earned. The kind that lasted because you chose it every single day, over and over again. That was the truest love of all.